What is up, fight fans? It is time for the MMA plug presented to you by Mile High Sports. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. You can give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. We are coming to you live from the number 38, presented to you by Volo. Got my man Danny Bailey behind the boards for me, as always, holding it down. Want to give a shout out to the whole Mile High Sports crew. Guys, check them out, whether it's on the podcast side of things, the website, magazine, merch drops, all of those things. They've got you covered for the latest and greatest in the sports world. You've got CU popping off. There's going to be football headlines coming up. No shortage of stories with Coach Prime ever in the mix. First season that he won't have Shador or Shiloh in the mix. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how he manages, as he have some father postpartum type of situation going on. We'll see without the boys in the mix. NFL, obviously, off-season camps and practices are in full swing. Keep your eyes on the lock for all news with the Broncos, keeping updated there. Our man Cody Rourke is doing phenomenal work covering all of that stuff. You have the Stanley Cup Finals in the NHL starting tonight. The NBA Finals start later this week, but there's lots of Nuggets chatter that is going on with potential trades and off-season moves. So keep it locked on our guys here for all of the latest in terms of those Nuggets talks. And then we have the Rockies. Rockies are 11-50. They lost 50 games before they won 10. But hey, don't say that they're on a heater, Danny, but they are on a 2-game win streak. They've officially won their first series in the entire season, and it's June. Season started back in beginning of April, just for those who are keeping track at home. One of those games in front of just over 5,000 people down in Miami a couple of days ago. I mean, you want to talk about like an empty stadium, just the aerial views of that. That's got to be an awful feeling for both of those franchises in that sense. They are officially the worst team in the history of Major League Baseball. But aside from that, make sure that you keep your eyes on all of those things Mile High Sports related with all the channels. Again, follow them on social media channels. Smash that like, share, and subscribe. Hit that on YouTube. Check out the website, all things so on and so forth. Giving you the Colorado rundown. There is basically events in the combat sports world every single weekend in the month of June. So it's a tremendous time to be a fan. Lots of competition to sink your teeth into. If you have the opportunity to get your tickets directly from the fighters, please do. It definitely helps them. Or if you're getting it through the online point of sale system, use their name in the code slot or the drop down, whatever that particular promotion uses for their sale. Whatever you can do to get them that commissioned option, please do. It greatly helps them as they build their platform and going forward. This weekend, you have a striking show, all boxing, kickboxing, so on and so forth, going down for Sparta Sports and Entertainment. That is 6 going down at the Eclipse Event Center over there off of Sheridan. Next weekend, you have Colorado Combat Club happening on the 13th, Friday the 13th. That is going to be at the Stampede over there off Havana Street, 2430 South Havana. Come and check us out that Friday night. Episode 1 of Countdown to Colorado Combat Club 24 has officially dropped on the Colorado Combat Club YouTube page. The main event between Kelvin Martinez, that is brother of UFC veteran Jonathan Martinez, taking on local kid who has fought many fights on the Colorado Combat Club scene, Alex, the Puerto Rican Demon Rigo. So check out that preview of that main event matchup between the two of those on the Colorado Combat Club YouTube page. On the 21st, you have Guerrilla Fighting Championship making their debut as a promotion down at the Pueblo Convention Center. You have a matchup in the main event between Darian Robinson taking on AJ Robb, a couple of fixtures of the Colorado featherweight division getting after it there in that main event. You also in the co-main have the Steel City Kid, Nico Cornejo. Check them out there on the 27th. Friday night, you have 5280 Muay Thai Fight Series making their return to action. That is going to be going down at the Stampede. A couple of pro fights on that card, as well as a smorgasbord of amateur battles on that card. You have Battle MMA Championship getting down the next night in Colorado Springs at the Colorado Springs City Hub. Friend of the program, Relentless Chris Malone, is going to be on that show. There is also going to be a few other recognized names from the pro circuit as well as the amateur scene from Southern Colorado on that card. So if you have the opportunity to check them out down at the Colorado Springs City Hub on the 28th, make sure that you do so there. We'll keep you updated as more dates unfold and for the schedule of events that'll be happening throughout the month of July. Transitioning from that, we're going to talk about the weekend recap. You had Sparta, who had an MMA show this last weekend, which was successful up at the Island Grove in Greeley, Colorado for the No-Co Showdown. A couple of other disciplines offered on that card as well. But, the thing is, overall, I'm a fan of shows up there in Greeley in Northern Colorado and the Island Grove as a venue as a whole. I've had a few shows up there that I've worked and been a part of myself. They tend to have a good turnout as far as the crowd. There's usually always a good showing and a draw that comes out to support the show. It's a good atmosphere, and the venue itself is the right size as long as you have your setup right. It's the right size for people to have a good viewing experience in the audience. So yeah, I think that's a great venue for shows. Hopefully sometime in the near future we'll also be making a Northern Colorado return as well. In the UFC, you had UFC Vegas 107 that went down in the Apex. Certainly filled with controversy once it got to the main event. This was a matchup that had a main event that was scheduled to be between Maycee Barber and Erin Blanchfield, number 4 versus number 5, respectively, in that women's flyweight division. That fight did not happen. Just minutes before that fight was set to take place, as the promo reel cut and it hit the desk to where the music was about to start for Maycee to walk, it's not happening. They cut to another break just to kind of figure out what's going on. The broadcast desk, it's a hard shot on the camera. They're not panning out. They're not showing anything else. And they just go to say, something is happening with Maycee not being able to walk out right now. We're going to head to a break real quick, and we'll see if we get this sorted out. They return back, and fight's canceled. It's not happening. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. In the co-main event, we had a matchup between two lightweights, Mateusz Gamrot taking on Ludwig Klein. Gamer, the number 7 ranked UFC lightweight, he basically kind of said that there's levels in this game. I think that there was a lot of people who thought that this was a trap fight in terms of gambling picks, if you will, to take it from other sports like a trap game, something of that sort, because Gamer has been a little bit inactive, and it's not due to his choosing. He's a hard guy for people to want to take fights with. He's a very difficult matchup. He's a solid striker. His chain wrestling is unreal. And he went out there across all 3 judges' scorecards and pitched a shutout, 30-27. He's 25-3, and this puts him back amongst the top contenders at 155 in that discussion, even though Ludwig Klein was an unranked opponent. Klein is kind of that next wave of 155ers who's on the verge of getting there. It's just not his time. And that, styles make fights. It was not the greatest of stylistic matchups, but it was a tremendous opportunity for Klein, who is also a tough guy to get matched up because of the threats that he presents. This was a chance for him to maybe go out there, make something happen, and emerge into that, or basically force himself into the rankings. But on the flip side, you had Gamer who said, hey, you know what? I need a fight. I've been turned down by basically everybody in front of me. I need someone who is willing to be a dance partner. If it has to be somebody right now for this go outside of the rankings, just to be active, just to say that, hey, I'm still relevant, just to go and show that, yes, I'm still that dude that is a force to be reckoned with, I will do so. And he went out there and he put on the performance, in my opinion, that he needed to say that, yes, I really still am that guy. What's next for him? That'll be, again, I don't know how much he gains in terms of immediate traction towards the top of the division with title fight looming between Oliveira and Topuria, so on and so forth. But there are going to be some openings in the rankings. Obviously, I mean, Dustin Poirier is going to be retiring in a couple of weeks after his final fight with Max Holloway. There's a couple of other fighters who may be in and out of that mix very shortly. So, yeah, we'll see how that all plays out for him. Following that, in what was the scheduled feature bout of the night, you had Ramiz Brahimaj taking on Billy Ray Goff. The tech submission, the guillotine, that high elbow, standing and up against the fence like that. That was such a gnarly choke with the guillotine. It was beautiful jiu-jitsu. It was phenomenal. It was technical. It was violent. And putting him to sleep in that fashion, folding him over as soon as the ref pulled him off. What a tremendous turnaround to put a few fights together, to put a couple together for Brahimaj. He's somebody who has unfortunately dealt with some setbacks throughout his career. Some of them within the cage, some of them unfortunate injuries outside of it, and surgeries and so on and so forth that he had to deal with. Our friend of the show, Max Payne Griffin, infamously literally took one of Brahimaj's ears off in the cage with an elbow. That's what Max has the tattoo of that ear on his elbow for, is when he elbowed his ear off right up against the fence. Brahimaj also had to have some pretty significant structural surgery to repair his body. And it was one of those cases where he thought that there's a chance that he may never be able to fight again based off of the severity of the damage that his body had already underwent. What a phenomenal story for him to have bounced back and is now rising as an emerging contender in a division that is white hot right now at 170 pounds. Next fight from that, I think my man got robbed for a bonus in Dustin Jacoby with the way that he knocked out Bruno Lopez. Ramiz Brahimaj, I think that he deserved the bonus. I definitely do. But Jordan Levitt got the other one for his submission. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to knock the Monkey King, but I think that Dustin's knockout and the way that he went out and highlight reeled this kid who was a Brazilian hype train prospect who is rising in the division coming off the Contender Series, former LFA champion, only one loss in his career, many finishes, and especially first round or early finishes in fights. But what Bruno Lopez forgot was that Dustin Jacoby is a sniper. Dustin Jacoby is one of the best strikers in the world on the purist side of things, much less in MMA. People glance over and they forget the fact that Dustin Jacoby is a multiple-time Glory Tournament champion. People glance over the fact that Dustin Jacoby challenged for a Glory World title. People glance over some of those accomplishments that he had in a striking specific realm. Accolades that they shower and praise some of his peers for kind of fall on deaf ears when it comes to Dustin for some reason. And, I would love to see Dustin get another chance to climb the rankings or have a big name to fight next. This is multiple fights in a row where he's just always having to fight these rising prospects. And I understand that that's what the game is based off of his age and where he's at. But you keep on sending him these hype trains and he continues to knock them out. He continues to send them to the shadow realm. And that's a gamer through and through. He's 37 years young. He knows that he's on the back nine as far as the career goes in terms of being closer to the end as opposed to the beginning. But there's still a lot of fight in that dog. And when we're talking about overall athletes within the division, again, for whatever reason, I think it gets overlooked how good of an athlete Dustin really is for his size. A former college quarterback who was that young guy who was a hyped up kid who was on the fast track, and he was in the UFC in his early 20s. That's how long Dustin has been doing this. Dustin has been fighting for like 17, 18 years, somewhere around in there. there are guys right now who are fighting these 17 and 18-year-olds who are coming out of the womb when Dustin Jacoby made his first fight debut, when he made that first walk. So put that in perspective for the veteran experience that he has on top of the athleticism that he brings to the table. And yeah, I know that I'm close to the forest on this one. Dustin is obviously a very close person to the program, was our very first in-studio guest, has been a part of multiple programs and ventures that we've had out here. But I just, I can't help but when you hear him talk and share his messages post fight, all that, so on and so forth, you can't not love Dustin Jacoby. He's just a gamer who goes out there, and no matter who it is, no matter what name you put in front of him, whether it be a top tier striker who is known for just blitzkrieging and eviscerating people like a Khalil Roundtree, to unknowns like Azamat Mirzakhanov, those type of guys, Dustin will go out there no matter who it is, and he's going to go out there and give you his best performance. Plain and simple. Matchup beyond that was Ketlin Vieira versus Maycee Barber. This was originally scheduled to be at bantamweight, ended up being contested at featherweight. This was a fight that I think was pretty one-sided. Ketlin Vieira pretty much controlled the action for the majority of all three rounds. Toward the end of the third, Maycee finally was able to start to unload her hands, and she drew some blood, had a little bit of a cut over the eyebrow of Vieira, but just not enough to be able to get the job done. She, on one judge's scorecard, she stole that round. But aside from that, not the performance that Maycee was hoping for, to be able to potentially put herself in the conversation for the next title contender at 135. Vieira and her team are talking about being back in the mix as title contenders at women's bantamweight, but you had issue with making 35. So if I'm the UFC, I'm definitely having a little bit of hesitation with giving you that nod in the next title shot. That's just me personally. I think that if you're struggling to the point to where we have to realign what weight this is being contested at, I'm not going to give you that next title shot because I don't have faith that you're going to be able to make that number on the scale. We're putting in a lot of money and investment from the business side on the promotional vehicle India. And if we don't have 100% confidence that you're going to meet that number scratch on the scale, not worth the risk at this moment. You got to prove that you can do it. Next fight from there. This one, I think we might have saw the last of Dushko. Unfortunately, the only thing that may save Dushko a little bit is the fact that he is in a bigger weight class and there isn't as many of those bodies to choose from. That's 3 losses in a row now. Zach Reese was able to get his hand raised in victory. This was a unanimous decision for him. Zach Reese has potential, but he also does have a lot of flaws, and at times those flaws in his game get him hurt. He didn't end up going out in this fight. He didn't taste the shadow realm like he has in a couple of other matchups. But this kid has fought so frequently that I can't help but think that he might be kind of burning himself in the process. Because if you're constantly in fight camp, you're not really having the opportunity to grow and develop your game. You're just working on what you have and sharpening those tools to continue to go into fight. You're making incremental growths in terms of your knowledge base and your skill set in relation to what you could if, say, he takes fighting off of the focus for just a quarter even. Don't fight for a few months. Don't fight for, say, 6 months even, let's say. Don't book yourself for that time. Just focus solely on the skill development side. And I think that the dividends that would happen for Zach Reese would be massive. I've witnessed this be the situation for many of fighters out there, some of them being close friends of mine and guys who Zach Reese has fought, for that matter, who They at one point were in a situation where they fought so frequently, fought, 5 times within a year. That really left them in a position where they're looking at it at basically a 50-50 clip in terms of wins, losses, and so on and so forth. But it's because some of those were tough matchups, those were tough fights. And had you, maybe spent a little bit more time rounding out just the general game and then approached that matchup at a date when you were better prepared, it's a different story. But again, that's just the dynamics of the fight game as a whole. And sometimes in a situation like Zach Reese, when you have the opportunity to go and make some money, hey, I can't blame you. But again, just my thoughts. I think that he should take some time to build his skills. As far as some standouts on the prelims, one of them we already gave a little discussion to. It was a long return into the cage after a bit of a hiatus for the Monkey King Jordan Levitt. He made a statement by submitting Kurt Hollabaugh, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, with an anaconda choke, all within side of 90 seconds of that fight, or I think it was just past 90 seconds, if you will. This got him a 50K performance bonus. Again, I mean, I don't want to take away from Jordan's performance. That was a spectacular outing. But a knockout on the main card, the way that Dustin had it, I just thought was a more deserving fight to get that performance bonus. I digress. Arlis Ardeleon got a victory against Rayon dos Santos. They won fight of the night. That was a scrap. It was not the most technical of fights, but especially once it got into the later rounds, I mean, both of them, they just kind of bit down and went for it. Well deserving of fight of the night honors there based on the card. Alan Nascimento at a catch weight of 127.5 pounds took on Jafel Filho. Nascimento he's a rising prospect in the flyweight division. He's put together some fights and he's building himself some steam and a resume at 125 pounds. He won this fight 29-28 on the judges' scorecards. Where that sits, in terms of, is he potentially looking at a vet or maybe towards the back half of the rankings or just outside? Who knows? We'll see. Maybe a higher placement on a next card is the next step, but we'll see as far as what's in store for Alan Nascimento there. You had Balaya Aki taking on Michael Aswell. This was a big step in Oki's career. He was supposed to originally fight our friend of the program, Markel Medeiros, who got rebooked for this weekend. Markel was sick last week and wasn't able to go through last week with this, so they just immediately turned him around this week. Talk a little bit more of that coming up in a minute. But yeah, this is a big win for Ogi, picking up that victory, 29-28 on the judges' scorecards. There's some potential heat just talking about a matchup that may come forward from this fight. You may see some traction towards Gamer and Patty, but that's based off of some exchanges that they had back and forth online. Gamer is a little bit active this weekend with his chatter, but at the same time, I think that he has to do a little bit more to promote himself and to try to get into some of those bigger fights in those positions there. Originally, that was supposed to be on this fight, Oben Elliott. I would like to see him have a quick turnaround sometime soon. He had visa issues being able to get into the country for this fight. I don't know when's going to be the next opportunity that they can get him here or what international card, but that kid is must-see TV. I would love to see him back in the mix as soon as possible. Overall, again, we're going to talk a little bit more about the situation that happened within the main event, but this was a card that had a lot of entertaining fights. People always want to bash some of these Apex cards online and say that, oh, this is another just lackadaisical effort from the UFC, so on and so forth. I disagree. Again, you had quality fights and finishes from the early prelims all the way up through a really solid co-main that ended up being the main event fight between Gamer and Ludwig Klein. Not every card on paper when you're doing between 40 and 50 shows a year is going to be filled with A-listers. but you're going to have some great stylistic matchups. And I feel like those fight night type of cards are the opportunity for you to be able to learn or maybe become aware of some of these other fighters out there so that when they're on these cards that are of a much larger magnitude, like this weekend's card, you have a little bit more of a knowledge base and an awareness of what they bring to the table. And hey, maybe it gives you the opportunity to be that one who goes and tells your friend, oh, yeah, I remember I've been watching him since X, Y, and Z. Whole different point for a different day. What do you guys think of last weekend's show? Was there any thoughts that you have on it? Let me know online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. That's on Instagram or on Threads. Moving to this weekend's UFC 316 preview. This is a chance for redemption. This is a rivalry between two bitter foes. There is a couple of grudge matches that are title fights on this card. There's some rising stars. They're all going to be getting after it in Newark at the Prudential Center over in New Jersey this weekend. You can check out that main card, obviously on pay-per-view, but the others will be available prelims as well as early prelims on ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. So check those out. Main event matchup. Merab Dvalishvili taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley. This is a rematch from that original title fight that happened last fall at Sphere or Inside Sphere, that Noche card. Merab dominated that first fight. Whether Sugar wants to say that it was because of the torn hip labrum or whatever, I don't know how much differently that first fight would have went. Yes, I will fully acknowledge that that was a legit injury that Sugar had to deal with and had to have surgery for. But just on a stylistic basis, I think that the only way, again, that Sean has a chance to beat Merab is to snipe him. He did find a little bit of a hole in the defense, if you will, or a chink in the armor with Merab when he hit him with the teep to the body in the 5th round. Merab didn't like that at all. He didn't like when that big toe got put right in his abdomen. So I think that that's going to be a shot that Sugar looks to find early on. I think that it would be wise for Sugar to show stuff up the middle, excuse me, early and often. With Merab's takedown rate and his pace and the pressure that he presents, I believe that you have to show something up the center early and often. You have to make him honor the threat that something could be coming right up to shoot at him. If you don't, then he's going to do what the machine does. And he's going to hold you up against the fence. And last time when he humiliated you by kissing you on the neck like it was a Diddy party, well, that's what's going to happen if you don't make him have to respect what you're bringing up the middle and have some sort of violence put in his face. Merab, on the flip side, Merab has bulletproof confidence. And I think especially after that first fight and the way that it went and the pace that he was able to put on Sugar, I think that Merab's confidence will be tenfold in this fight. One way or the other, it doesn't matter who it is. Merab fights like it is going to be his last time every single bout. And at the same time, he has an endless gas tank. The way that he can just continue to push for the full 25 minutes is unprecedented. That also makes him that more dangerous, I feel like, unless you absolutely put him out. Because yes, you can hurt him, but his gas tank is so good, his cardio is so strong that he's able to recover that much more quickly and efficiently than many of his peers. If Sean does not find something that makes Merab have to honor the threat early, I would not be surprised if we see a very frustrated O'Malley on his back on the canvas and trying to find his way to get up against the fence, trying to wall walk and trying to scramble away in the process. Sugar has had to deal with a couple of surgeries since that last fight. Obviously the hip, and then he a few months ago was on tape on crutches with a boot. So, we'll see how that affects his overall condition coming into this fight. Obviously, he's an elite athlete. He's one of the top tier guys in the world at 135. But if I'm Rob, I'm taking him down immediately, or I'm at least presenting that threat and I'm making him have to change levels and get up and down multiple times. There's always the talk from some of the wrestling purists and the ground and pound purists out there that you only need one takedown to finish a fight. But on Marab's side of things, Marab is cool letting you up because he's confident that he can go and get the takedown again. And he wants to get you tired just by making you have to get up and down and up and down and up and down over and over and over. I think it's going to be a thrilling contest. But again, if O'Malley can't find something early, I imagine that there's going to be a certain level of frustration that starts to set in for him. In the co-main event, this is a matchup that I've been waiting to see basically since Kayla got signed. You have Juliana Pena taking on Kayla Harrison for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. This is a fight that was destined for Kayla Harrison as soon as she came over to the UFC, no matter who it was, for gold. It doesn't matter whether it was Juliana or Rocky or whoever. She was on a short track to getting that title shot. Multiple-time PFL champion, two-time Olympic judo gold medalist. Kayla Harrison has unfaltering, unwavering confidence. She is going to go in there and try to put an elbow right in Juliana's face. She's going to want to put her down against the canvas, but you also have to know that Juliana's a dog. Unless you put Juliana out, she's still going to be around in the fight, and if Kayla gets tired, that's going to be a problem. We saw Juliana be able to withstand the initial sprint of a beating in that first matchup with Amanda Nunes, and then able to basically, I don't even want to say rope-a-dope because she took an ass whooping, but she took so much of a beating and just didn't go out when Amanda fought her that Amanda got tired, and she was able to turn the tables, reverse, and finish Amanda in the process. I don't know that that's going to be the case with Kayla. I am continually intrigued by how Kayla is going to make the weight and how she responds to these weight cuts. Kayla just holds so much muscle mass, and she is such a large framed woman that her making that 135 margin it's a science within itself. Juliana went to the New York Giants practice over the last couple of days. They put out the footage, and no surprise, Jameis Winston stole the show. But I did think that it was pretty cool to see that dynamic of her out there interacting with some of the football players, and some of them were just asking her some mindset questions. How do you know when you have somebody, or how do you know when the fight is yours? And Juliana just gave her talk about, when we stand there and when we face off, when we meet eyes, when that first moment when we lock in, just lots of little iterations of that sort of talk. It was cool to see her out there trying to branch out, trying to grow the product, trying to promote herself. And yeah, I think that that's one thing that Juliana does do well, is she sells the hell out of herself because she has a lot of haters. And Juliana is one of those types of fighters that she draws so much heat that people want to tune in, not just to watch her win for the bit of a fan base that she does have, but there's a lot of people who tune in to want to watch Juliana get smoked just by her antics and the way that she talks. She is the perfect heel in that situation for the women's division, and she moves the needle for them. You have to have somebody who's willing to be the bad guy or the bad girl in that sense to go out there and have a stir, have a commotion. As far as how this fight goes, though, I have to think that this favors Kayla Harrison personally. Some other main card highlights. You have a matchup in the middleweight division between Kelvin Gastelum taking on Joe Pyfer. This is a fight that, both guys have had some situations in terms of actually making it all the way to fight day, leading up to fights on a very, very short notice. So hopefully by the time that Saturday runs through, both of these guys will actually be in the cage. Kelvin Gastelum's fall off is something that is going to be studied and talked about for years. Kelvin has the ability, or at least on paper, that still puts him amongst some of the elites of the division. However, we haven't seen that Kelvin, that title contender or that title challenger, if you will, level Kelvin in a while. I mean, issues at the scale to injuries to fights where he just came out and flat out said I was unmotivated and laid an egg. A couple of bad performances in the process. And then he'll have one where he flashes and like, oh no, Kelvin might be back. Joe Pyfer is going to go in there and he's going to try to power punch his lights out. Joe Pyfer had the issue down in Mexico City with the stomach bug that impacted a lot of people that were involved with that show. I think that this week, Joe Pyfer, though, he has a little bit of redemption. This isn't exactly a home game for him, but Philly is not too far off from Newark, New Jersey, and that crew right now over there in Philadelphia, they're pretty hot as a bunch overall. Whether it's him, to Sean Brady, Pat Sabatini, Andre Petrosky, all these guys are having tremendous levels of success right now, and they've got a great fan base and a great following out there out east. So I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of their crew that are going to be loud and proud for Joe Pyfer there. And, again, styles make fights. Joe Pyfer does has some solid grappling out there in his back pocket, but both of them want to go out there and knock you out. So if we get this fight, this could be a treat in the middleweight division. Following that, a highly anticipated debut in the bantamweight division for Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix, the former Bellator champion, is the short notice replacement for an injured Marlon Chito Vera, who was set to take on Mario Bautista. Mario Bautista has a chance to go out there and really propel himself forward. He caught a lot of hate after his last fight, a very lackluster performance. Basically press Jose Aldo up against the fence mat for the majority of 15 minutes type of matchup that notably or understandably drew a lot of criticism. I think that this is a fight, though, where he has a chance to go out there and put himself in a much higher discussion overall. Then you have Vicente Luque, who is going to be taking on Kevin Holland in the welterweight division. This is a welterweight showdown of two guys who have been in the fight game for a long time. Kevin Holland has gone back and forth between 170 and 185. Luque, throughout his run in the UFC, has fought a lot of the who's who of the 170 pounders. The thing is, though, is the Luque that we have now today in 2025 is not that Luque of 4 years ago. Unfortunately, he's had some significant injuries that have impacted him. He's still a very dangerous fighter, but is he that top tier guy that was on the outside looking in of being a contender? That guy who submitted Tyron Woodley just a few years back, that dude who was anacondaing and knocking people out left and right. That's not him anymore. Still a very crafty veteran. This is a chance, though, for Kevin Holland to go out there and have a very quality performance against a respected veteran. But Kevin Holland has to take this threat seriously. Kevin Holland is a guy who we've spoke about on this program who he's such a wild card. We don't know what Kevin Holland we're getting. Are we getting a Kevin Holland who took this fight seriously and decided to train, or are we getting the Kevin Holland who just days out before he fought RDR, who was on the Jackson podcast with Rampage saying, I really don't care about this fight this weekend, and then goes out there and gets embarrassed in the first round? Which Kevin are we actually going to get? That's the big discussion here. Also want to throw a shout out on the prelims. Markel Medeiros, as mentioned, he's going to be on this card. He's taking on Mark Chonsky, who is going to be making his UFC debut, a regional champion out of Anthony Pettis Fighting Championship, former All-American wrestler out there. This is a good matchup, though, for Markel. Unfortunately, like we say, had to be rebooked from last week into this one, but we're riding with you, Q. Got to talk real quick, though, ladies and gentlemen, about the Maycee Barber fiasco. This is one that I feel like should not just get swept under the rug and forgot about. Let me preface all of this by saying that she is legitimately dealing with some very significant health issues. And for that, collectively, I do have compassion. But I cannot also help but think of how much of a colossal failure this whole situation was. If this was an isolated incident and truly an anomaly, then it can be treated in the aforementioned fashion, but it's not. This was not the first time that she had seizures during the camp. It was not the first time that she suffered a seizure that week. I don't fault Maycee for wanting to continue to push through and fight. Whether you like her or not, she's a fighter at her core. She wants to go out there and do her job and fight. But that's where her team failed her. And this, all that I'm saying, was also this morning, today, on my way over on the Chael Sonnen channel, was confirmed with Chael's conversation that he spoke about per one of Maycee's coaches. He didn't name which coach, but mentioned that, yes, there was a situation that this started happening weeks ago in the camp. They made the mistake of not pulling at the time and letting it get to this point. So all of what I'm about to say now has basically been acknowledged or spoken to and said, yes, I'm right. But her team failed her. Her team failed her in letting it get all the way to that point where an episode happened during the warm-up in the locker room just minutes before making the walk in the locker room in front of the commission. I feel like this was an episode of pure gross negligence to let it get there. Let it also be clear, I know personally all of the people who I'm speaking of here and who I'm in the position of having to be critical of. That's what my job is right now in this position. Some of these people I consider to be good friends. The thought of, oh, it's happened before and she's pushed through it and been fine, or we can push through it and we'll get through it, then figure it out after the fight. I just feel like it's so short-sighted, selfish, and for lack of a better term, stupid when you're in a profession that is going to guarantee taking impact to the brain, that it actually kind of makes me feel bad for. In some cases, you reap what you sow. Maycee's bounced around a lot of camps, burned a lot of bridges along the way, but she deserved better from her team here. Honestly, the episode happening when it did in the back before the fight was the best time for it to happen. She needs help, and this is forcing for help to be gotten. Also, what would have happened if this poor girl goes out there and starts seizing in the cage or worse? That is literally the worst possible situation for everybody involved in combat sports worldwide. All that to be said, that this also robbed Erin Blanchfield of a tremendous opportunity. Blanchfield has been under fire by some calling Barber unprofessional and saying that this health episode is something that can't be controlled, so that comment is in poor taste. Oh, they're right and they're wrong. Like I say, if this were an isolated incident, then yes, Erin's comments would be in poor taste. However, as mentioned, it's not. This was an ongoing issue that rumors were circling about it for weeks. This is also a fight cancellation that was on the heels of Barber missing weight by half a pound following being out more than a year from a fight that she pulled out just days before in another main event opportunity against Rose Namajunas due to medical issues. So the optics of it, it's not a good look. We saw where this path got Nico Montano. And I'm not saying that it should be that Maycee should be cut or anything like that at all. She is one of the best fighters in the world at 125. But I understand the frustration from Erin Blanchfield's side. Yes, she got her show and her win money, but she lost a golden opportunity that was meant to propel either one of these two fighters who won. That fight meant something, and you could tell that it did because of how the promotion positioned things. There were implications on the line. You don't have the champion Valentina all dolled up cage side and then on the desk post show if there wasn't implications for this fight. An impressive performance for either one of these ladies would have secured a title shot most likely by the end of the year against Shevchenko. But again, all that to be said, unfortunately, Erin Blanchfield didn't get the fight. Hopefully, the health issues for Maycee get figured out on a personal level. I don't wish for anybody to go through those types of major health circumstances and episodes. And yeah, fighting aside, for health and longevity. I hope she gets it figured out. Transitioning now to close out the hour, going 3 rounds. I got my man Danny Bailey behind the boards here. First round.
What do we have? All right, Jordan. So, first round today. In a recent interview, Tom Aspinall announced Jon Jones is retired. Your thoughts?
I mean, I love it from Tom. It's something that I think Tom's in such a tough predicament that he's in a mental chess warfare with Jon, who, if you push Jon, well, then Jon backs away and says, I don't really need it. But then once you start pulling away, then that's when you kind of reel Jon back in a little bit. Jon is having the time of his life out there in Thailand right now. He's had some very interesting videos that have popped up all over social media in the process. This was a promo that Aspinall cut on Good Guy, Bad Guy with DC and Chael. I think some of the things that he needs to say. But again, Jon has put out statements. Well, I told the UFC what my plan is. I don't know why they haven't told you. Jon doesn't owe anybody anything. It's on the promotion to strip him. People are flooding the comment section of every UFC related post saying to strip Jon Jones. It's on the promotion. It's not on Jon.
Friend of the program, Mr. Wonderful, Phil Davis, has filed an antitrust lawsuit against the UFC. Given the previous cases, is this a wise choice?
How much money do you have, Phil? Because it's going to be expensive. Yes, there is the chance that you may see a payday in the future, and your positioning of unfair business tactics and practices and whatnot. There is a case. There is for sure a case for that to be had. However, the last group that had the lawsuit took over 10 years for that to actually be heard. That's 10 years of continuances. That's 10 years of legal fees. That's 10 years of expenses that you're going to have to factor in this process. And that was for that case. Who knows what this one is, especially after the first one being settled. This is all about, you got to find someone who's out there willing to hear the case, or judges and all that. I'm not exactly the most familiar with the legal system in that sort, but as it was explained to me with the first cases, that it's not something that is ever high on the docket for them to hear. The judge that was involved with that previous case, there was some ties that, obviously Dana had mentioned that he went to high school with him or something along those lines with him and Lorenzo Fertitta back in the day, the Fertitta brothers, that maybe there was a personal angle of that judge choosing to take that case back then. And I don't know how that relates to, does he get to be involved with this one, or does he? I don't know how all of that works. I just talk about cage fighting. I'm not a legal expert. Might have to bring in somebody to talk about that one as it's there. But all I got to say more than anything for Phil Davis is, brother, I hope that the bankroll is fat for you and you have some people that are willing to help you fund this case, because otherwise it is going to be something that they have the resources. They are a billion-dollar enterprise. They will bleed you dry in the process.
BJ Penn was arrested 3 times last week. Are you surprised?
Yes and no. I am surprised that it was 3 times. Because that means that he got released twice. And all for the same, or basically all within the ballpark of the same charges of threatening and harassing. And a lot of the troublesome aspect of it is that it's to his family, it's to his mom. BJ has obviously taken some damage to his brain throughout his career, but there's also rumors of substance abuse and drug issues that basically fall right in line with paranoia and some of the, I can't remember the syndrome that it's called, but where you believe that people have taken place of others. Like, he accuses that his family has been replaced by clones or by imposters. Just a lot of wild things going on in the BJ Penn world, and it's really sad to see. I hope that with multiple arrests, and I'm not trying to say that I want to see somebody incarcerated, but I do believe that right now he is a threat to himself and he is a threat to the people around him. I'm not saying that this is a Chris Benoit type of situation, but it's got essences of it written all over. And I would hate to see something tragic happen when there could have been an opportunity to prevent it by putting him on some sort of psych hold or having him go through some inpatient type of therapy situation. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that allowing him to continue to be in the mix and in the environment where he's with his family and or the people who he is accusing of being imposters of his family, this is not going to end well if they continue just to book and release, book and release, book and release. Just like that, though, folks, we are all out of time. Want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Let us know what you think. You can hit me up on social media. That's Jordan Kurtz at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. Make sure that you also like, share, and subscribe to all Mile High Sports channels out there. Want to give a big thank you to my man, Danny Bailey, for holding it down for me each and every week. If you have the chance to check out any of those shows that are coming up here on the Front Range, please make sure that you do so. That greatly helps us be able to continue to put on shows and have a platform to showcase the talent in the combat sports community that is bountiful here in Colorado. Also want to give a shout out to my parents. It's their anniversary here today. So with that being said, folks, we will see you next week. Same time, same place. I'm Jordan Kurtz. This is the MMA Plug presented to you by Mile High Plus, live at the number 38, presented by Volo.